Thank you for this wonderful film, Shoibal sir. In these struggling times, such artistic works truly give us hope to think, to resist, and to continue fighting. Keeping in mind the spirit of JNU, let's continue thinking, learning, exchanging ideas, and creating spaces to discuss and debate. So now, I would like to welcome our three speakers of the day, Professor Ira Bhaskar, Shoibal Mitro himself, and Nasiruddin Shah. I would also like to mention that Ratna Pathak ma'am has arrived too, with whom you will be interacting in the next session. So welcome again everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Vasudha. Is this working?
Yeah.
Okay. We've already met Saibal Mitra, the director of the film, this wonderful film. And Nasir Saab is here, who needs no introduction to this audience. But I, as a young person in college, and as a member of the Film Society, we began my sort of film studies career, as it were, with Nasir Saab and his early films of the 70s. And we had the privilege, I was telling him outside, of having him with us at Lady Shriram College for a discussion on Nishant, Manthan and Bhumika in 1977, in October 1977. So that was wonderful, and I'm sure, so this is a little fan moment from my side for Nasir Saab. Of course, he's been, I mean, what can I say, you know, he's a Padma Shri, a Padma Bhushan awardee, he's won all these national awards and Filmfare awards and various kinds of awards all over the world. He's a legend of our cinema, of Indian cinema, because he's also worked in many different languages. So while the early films of Benegal and Govind Nihalani and Sai Paranjpa and so many others are films that we grew up on in the 1970s and 80s, the generation after have also seen him in very, very major films that followed in Bombay cinema and in other language cinemas as well. And I particularly, of course there's so many, so I can't talk about so many of his films, but I remember him in Sarfarosh, for instance, and I also, a very favorite film of mine and a very favorite performance of mine as Gandhi in Hera. I remember that. And then there are other smaller films. I remember his fabulous performance in a small film that didn't release called The Coffin Maker. And I remember seeing it at FTII, and it was wonderful. So there are all these performances, but today, of course, we've been witness to a fantastic performance that justifies why he's the kind of stalwart and the kind of iconic actor that he is. He is also a theatre actor. He has a theatre group called Motley Productions, and they have performed in different parts of India. And today, of course, we're going to, after the session,
performing here.
Yeah, you're performing here. So please join me once again in welcoming Nasiruddin. So I'd like to begin the conversation by welcoming Saibal Mitra once again to this audience. And I'll begin by asking you the first question, and asking you to actually speak to our audience about the whole process, because this is a film that is inspired, and Vishnu Priya already mentioned that, by a play called Inherit the Wind, written by Jerome Lawrence and the state of Tennessee. Incidentally, the state of Tennessee, that was a discovery for me. The state of Tennessee was against John Thomas Coase because of him not teaching the Genesis chapter of the Bible, which is what your film also has. So I was really interested in understanding the process, because you adapted that play from 1920, the trial from 1925 to the discourses of today, almost 100 years later. So it's been 100 years since that incident and today. So I wanted to ask you to please speak about that whole process of adaptation, because I'm sure you had, I haven't read the play, so I don't know, but I'm sure you had to adapt a lot of things for the current situation and the discourses of the current. So if you could speak a little about that.
Thank you. Thank you. Not from me, also from the entire team who made this film. Cinema, I think, is a collective creation. It's not a one man's job. Anyway, let me tell you at the beginning that what I feel is that the film would not have achieved this height if Nasirji wasn't there. I think all of you will agree to this. Actually. And the first thing is, I completed this film just before the pandemic. After, when I came back to my house with an MP4 file of the complete film, I heard this 21 days lockdown or something. I didn't realize what is that. And say it's a matter of 21 days. Then I had to wait for 2.5 years. It took me another 2 years to make this film, or more than 2 years. Then I could release this film. But I must also tell you two things, that why I chose this thing, this drama. I am a kind of person or filmmaker who always tries to react to my immediate surroundings, my country, my countrymen. And we look for text which will help me to make a film out of it. At the same time, I can communicate what I want to communicate. When at that point of time, I read this thing, Inherit the Wind. One of my friends who was translating some American drama into Bengali, he gave me his draft. When I went through it, I find this drama very close to my heart, what I was thinking of making a movie out of it. Actually, Inherit the Wind is based on an incident that happened in 1925. But the drama was written in the 50s. It was a time in American political history, which is a time where all the leftists were under attack, and Chaplin had to leave America. Hollywood was very much a very disturbed place, and McCarthy era. What I thought, I am living now in our kind of McCarthy era, Indian McCarthy era, you can say. So, then I said, okay, let's try. Then I started writing the script, and then while adopting it into Indian context, I tried to replace the Bible part with Veda or something like that. But I found it very difficult. Our Hinduism is not a very coded religion. And to write a script or to make a film within a certain period of time will be difficult to go through all the Hindu scriptures and many things there. There are areas where you can attack, but still there are other interpretations that there also. So I thought, okay, let me use it as a pretext or as a facade of not directly targeting any particular religion or majority religion. And at that time, I also tried to name this film as I Am Not a Hindu. So Nasirji said, don't be so blunt.
That would have been terrible.
So Then we thought of other name. And regarding Nasirji, it is because of my wife Sudeshna who suggested to approach Nasirji. Nasirji never knew me. I just sent one SMS to him, and immediately came the reply, "Come to Mumbai with your script." So I was shocked, and then I said, "Okay, I'm coming." Then I realized I wrote it in Bengali, so I asked for time. I had to translate it to English, and then the process started. And actually, what I have to say, it's there in the movie. So you all saw it, you know what is it. No point telling anything more than that actually here. But I enjoyed working with Soumitra and Nasirji and all other actors. But some of them are not there. I lost them during the pandemic. So now it's very difficult for me to watch the movies. It's a very personal loss. One of the people who are not with me, Jawaharlal Guha, Soumitra and other people who are not there. So it gives me a pain. So I don't watch the movie. It's there, and I know whenever the movie was screened, people enjoyed it. People text me, said it's a good movie, everything. I released it all over India, but we don't have that much of money to publicize, or it's a huge thing. I mean, publicity and other thing. And people are asking me why it should come on the OTT and other thing. I was just telling Ratnaji, we don't have any place in OTT. People loved it in OTT. Some executive told me we liked it, but we don't dare to take this film on our platform. So maybe, I don't know, someday on YouTube we will find this film. It's for the people.
Yes, thank you. We just have to break for a minute or so because there's a sound problem and people outside can't hear what they're saying, what any of us is saying, and they really want to hear both of you. So Rohit has just requested us to wait for a minute or two before we, so we'll let you. Thanks a lot. You all can hear, right, at the back? Yeah. Oh, okay, so we were talking about your process, and I'd like to ask you to respond to that moment when when you came. Of course, you had to, some time was spent in translation, etc. And then a series of emails, I assume, and so on. So if you can just talk a little bit about that process.
Well, Inherit the Wind is a play which I read sometime in the mid-70s, and I thought it was a very stimulating piece of writing, and I really wanted to do it on the stage, but it involves so much paraphernalia that I never did get around to doing it. Sorry, and gradually my interest has shifted away from realistic theatre. So I never got to do it, which was a regret until I got this message from Saibal, who told me he's planning a film on it. So my main concern was that it should not seem like an attack on the Christian community, because it could very well and very easily be interpreted as such. And for that I give credit to the adaptation done by Saibal, in which he's Indianized it, not just Indianized it, he has managed to bring in his own personal statements, a picture of the toxicity in which we are living today, and the dependence on superstition, where we are beginning to mistake mythology for history. And I felt I certainly must be part of this movie. So I asked him to come to Mumbai, and he, of course, I told him don't bring me the Bengali script because I won't get far with it. but he did bring me the English script and told me that Mr. Soumitra Chatterjee would be playing the other character, and I must say I was delighted at the prospect. Shooting the film was certainly hard work because I had several lengthy passages, and I stayed at the Trolley Club in Calcutta, which I love, and would walk around the golf course memorizing those passages in the mornings. I nearly got hit by a golf ball once, but I didn't. And I felt that this is a significant film because it is trying to portray a true picture of the times, and that's the kind of cinema I believe is significant, which is why I consider documentaries of more significance than feature films, because documentaries can capture life as it is, which no other form can do. Cinema is a combination of all the other art forms. It's a mix of theatre and photography and painting and architecture and sculpture and music and choreography. It has assimilated all these forms, and it is really truly the only form which can capture life as it is. And so I said yes without any hesitation at all, and I'm very glad I did it, because this is a film that might be seen 50 years, 100 years later, and will give a true picture of what the situation of our country really was like in our time.
Absolutely, absolutely. You said something very interesting when earlier when you spoke, which is that you were looking for which text, Hindu text, wondering whether it's the Vedas, and of course because Hinduism has so many different kinds of texts, and I assume that that's why you chose Christianity, which of course we have to remember is a 2,000-year-old, has a history that's 2,000-year-old. People often forget that Christianity is as much an Indian, religion as it is from anywhere else in the world. So you chose Christianity, and what I felt watching it several times, I watched it third time today, that enabled you to actually attack what's going on, by displacing it a little away from majoritarian Hindu religion, and you picked up Christianity, because most other films today, even in independent cinema, when it picks up the issue of communalism, it's usually Hindu-Muslim. It's usually about Islamic terrorism, blah blah, etc. Now your focus, it is through Christianity that you come, and it broadens the, So I was just wondering whether you thought a little bit about what that would do. Would it deflect the situation? Would it allow you to say more things by addressing the issues through Christianity?
There are two things. One is a belief factors. You believe in something, believe in this particular religion. And the other is a minority question. Actually, Christians are more depressed and tortured like any other minorities, and usually we don't hear or know about, it doesn't come up in the media as much actually. I personally know some Christian friends, and I went through the history of these Christians being targeted, murdered, and found the data which is there in the dialogue also. It's alarming. The numbers that Christians are being slaughtered or in a month's time. It's very, if you put the data on the table, it's very alarming. And another thing is education. Christians played a very important part in imparting, giving us education, and the Western education or something, the evangelists and others. That is a very important thing actually. Every good college or schools, you will find mostly they are from Christian community. I mean, they are funding those things. And in the tribals, when I went for the Reiki to find out the locations, I found this Adivasis, the tribes, are, I mean, they are becoming Christians for two things. One is food, and the other is education. Our character, Kunal Baske, is like that. I've seen that kind of boys or girls there, because the food is very important. They're very, very poor person. I mean, in Birbhum, I was born in Calcutta, but I I was in Shantiniketan, my school days, college days. I had my, Dalit friends, but never felt like they are Dalits. I'm Hindu, like that actually, Santals. And some of my friends were Santals, we were my classmates. And I heard from them that their father, they are not Christians, but they become a Christians only because the father thought that if we become a Christian, my son will get this education, which is important, and also kind of welfare work that they do. This is really good, actually, I find. That's why I use Christianity as a facade, and there is another dialogue which Nasirji is saying in the film, is that when the two teachers came to hire him as a lawyer, he said, fanatics, no, it may be a protectionist attitude of the Christians, but trying to protect themselves from the onslaught. And also, it is very natural when an attack comes from a majoritarian religion. It is obvious the other minority, groups, the religion, they will fight back. They will also try to claim that, okay, we are this. And India is for that, where anyone can say, I'm a Christian, I'm a Islam, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Jain. They all have the same right to practice and say it and live peacefully. That is our country. That is India. That's why I thought, let's do this thing. One thing happened, after the film went, many of them were loved it and watched it, and then after the run was over in the theatre, when people saw me on the road or in any shop or any gathering, they got surprised that I'm outside.
Did they expect you to be in prison?
That is the narrative now. So now I'm perfectly fine. So that's how it happened, actually.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful actually, because your film makes very clear statement that there are many beliefs, many thoughts. It's one of your dialogues, right, in the film. So while shooting the film, in terms of both your interaction with Soumitra Chatterjee and with others, did you feel that the sort of the project, your film's project, your ideas were powerful enough to create, because they are really powerful and they touch us immediately? Did you have any difficulties? Did you feel anything? What was the shooting process like? And in terms of the as an artist, you must have felt that, as you said earlier, that an intervention like this is important at this point in time. So if you could speak a little bit about that.
Well, if you mean anxiety about the hate messages on Facebook, no, that didn't bother me. But I did feel a responsibility to definitely be a part of this film. And I would have I would have appeared in any capacity that Saibal wanted me. It wasn't as if I was angling for the protagonist's part. To me, that is of extreme importance. I've played enough great roles. I'm not hankering for them anymore. I'm not thirsting for any more laurels. I want to be part of films which I feel I will enjoy and which will be remembered. And Saibal told me that apart from Shomitra, there was going to be Kaushik, who's a marvelous actor and a wonderful director, and the young boy who played the Adivasi, I forget his name, but he was absolutely marvelous, and Amrita Chakrabarti, who played his love interest. When I'm in the middle of a job, I don't think about how this is going to turn out. I just try to lose myself in what I'm supposed to do. Lose myself is perhaps a bad word, but to concentrate on what I'm supposed to do. Because an actor should never lose himself. I mean, I really shouldn't have said that. There are enough senior actors who say, you know, I was so lost in my performance that I didn't notice anything. And I think that kind of talk is nonsense. Because you should not, if you're lost, you shouldn't be acting. You should be alert to everything. So let me put it this way, that I just concentrate on what I'm supposed to do. Whether this film is going to turn out well or not is not in my hands. There is no way that you can ever predict what a film is going to turn out to be when you read the script. That is entirely up to the maker. But on reading the script, if you feel impelled, and I did feel impelled to do this part. I was also looking forward very much to working with Mr. Soumitra Chatterjee. I greatly envied him, I have to admit, because he appeared in wonderful movies like Apur Sansar and Mahanagar and others by Mr. Ray. And when I did meet him, he was extremely nice and civil and appreciated my work and everything, but he wasn't in the best of health at that time. And I also feel that there is a bit of a difference between actors of my generation and actors of his generation. And I don't intend to run anybody down or make any personal attacks, but I've worked with several veterans, and I'm being called a veteran myself now, but I've worked with several who've been around much before my time, and I've almost always felt that there is a difference of approach. To me, acting is not a contest, which is why I detest statements like a clash of two actors, or actors pitted against each other and nonsense like that. Actors do not work against each other. Actors work with each other. And you cannot be good unless you encourage your fellow actor to do his best. I often meet youngsters who say, sir, we get very nervous when we... And I say, don't talk nonsense, because if I'm making you nervous, then I'm not doing you good. So I try to put them at ease as much as I can. But this is certainly a lacuna between these two schools of acting, if I may call them that. Who knows, 10 years from now I might be the fossil.
Well, in a lot of articles and some interviews that I read, the younger actors and everyone else, they've talked about how you actually encourage them on the set. You help them, give them cues, and and so on.
I consider that to be part of my job.
Yes, and that passion with which you have approached this role comes through on screen very much. So I was wondering whether while shooting you had any trouble, like Padmavat, shots, or people didn't really know what was going on and didn't really, the writing didn't get hold of it, or maybe it's Bengal.
No, we were very careful about Nasirji, so that he is not being disturbed.
No, but even you and your film.
No, we didn't consider ourselves a threat or something. Nothing happened. and also Soumitra for his help. These are two factors that I had to manage. As Nasiruddin was saying, he was not very good health. I saw Nasiruddin giving Soumitra the cue of his lines. Soumitra used to work for only 4 hours. After that he couldn't act. So we had to concentrate every morning on Soumitra's shots, and then when he is gone, we used to take Nasiruddin's. At that time, the kind of respect Nasiruddin had for Soumitra, because usually the assistants give the dialogues from the outside of the frame. Nasiruddin used to give him the dialogues so that he can perform. Because maybe Nasiruddin's shots were taken just yesterday. Now he came to give his part of his shots. So Nasiruddin used to act just the way he had acted in his shot yesterday. That helped also. And I also made some tricks so that Soumitra also, losing his memory. Memorizing lines was becoming very difficult for him. So I had to plan it in such a way, I had to edit the shots before I take. This much of dialogue will be on his lip, on the shot, and these lines will be off. So those lines he added during the dubbing. And when he was dubbing the movie, and actually it is his last complete film. With shot and dubbed. While watching this movie, I can sense that Soumitra was trying to gather strength so that through dubbing he can elevate his performance or make it more what he actually wanted to do during the shooting but couldn't do because of his health. He used to tell me, Shoaib, if I had that strength, that was very pathetic and very
No, it was actually really poignant to watch him on screen,
very sad to watch.
And when he collapses, that was really a moment that was very sort of touching because
he was very eager to watch, but that time it was pandemic, everything closed. I said, okay, I'll arrange a show only for you. No one will be there. So he said, okay, I will tell you when I will go. But then he himself went out to shoot, which we all said, please Soumitra, don't go. But he was restless. He cannot just stay back in the home. And then everything.
So he never saw the film?
No, at the dubbing stage only. Saw the whole film in the dubbing. But he was very eager to watch the complete movie.
And the threats, etc., there was nothing, no. Okay, that's good. And it was shot in Bengal, the entire film?
Yeah, entirely Bengal. Some parts at Jharkhand, at the beginning sequence when Nasiruddin is sitting, that is the Bengal-Jharkhand border only. It's very hot, humid, and I was about to die. More than 50 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, right. So, I don't know if there are any questions that, as seen as most dangerous to the people. This is one question. Why are Maoists seen as most dangerous? Would you like to answer that?
Not to the people, but to the administration.
I don't know if you know, but the reputation of JNU is that it's an institution that produces Maoists and terrorists. Okay. To the director, sir, kindly explain the relevance of the Hindu deity Lord Ram, I think strolling around on different occasions.
Ram se bach ke rehna. Actually, these are we call in Bengal it's Bohurupi. They are artists. It's very typical of Birbhum. There's a village in Birbhum where all of them are this Bahurupi artist. Some of them become Ram, some Sita, some Krishna, and move around in trains and roads and buses and begging. But like the Bauls of Bengal, the Bahurupis are also very typical of Bengal. So I thought, why not use them? Sometimes appearing with an arrow,
No,
in
actually,
the courtroom,
yeah.
without saying anything.
Actually, it's very interesting because they keep appearing, and of course there are these processions also, and some fellows in a truck going by, Jai Shri Ram, etc. It actually, their appearance actually creates a kind of dangerous mahal, environment that we are living in. Because the
You
threat
are
is
being
very
watched.
clear. You don't say it directly, but the threat is very clear from the Hindu majoritarian government. And it's religion that they're using to do that, as in one of your, speeches.
Actually, that is not the actual Ram, I think. Ram is very close to people's heart, Indian people's heart. The one in Bengali we call Proja, a king who is loved by his subjects. And there are songs are there.
Yeah.
And this Siya Ram
Yeah.
becomes Sri Ram.
Yeah.
This kind of distortion or very manipulated one sort of message they are spreading. Ram is a very, as per Ramayana, he is a very good king. He was, people were not bothered about Ram, that I Ram aa gaya, kya hoga.
No, but it's the transformation of the figure of Ram, the Maryada Purushottam, into the militant.
Militant Ram, yeah.
Would you like?
He's become an aggressive figure. He's become a militant figure. He's become one you should be scared of.
Disruptive.
Yeah. More important than that is to have devotion and love. You're supposed to be scared of him. Even Allama Iqbal referred to Ram as Imam-e-Hind, and that's not a small compliment to pay. You see, this dispensation has tapped into the most sensitive sentiment that there was, latent, I believe. I don't believe this has erupted out of nowhere. I believe it was always, what's the word, like a bud grows. Yeah, and it's burst forth in full bloom, if that is what you would say, because that is the thing which touches people closest, the idea of the afterlife and so on, which I do not at all subscribe to that kind of view, but if people do take it seriously. I know that my own mother, for whom, when she was nearing death, she believed that Jannat is actually a place where she's going to get off an aeroplane and be greeted, and received and taken to the lounge. And when I would tell her that, look, don't you realize, Ammi, that heaven is right here for you? You get any wish you want can be granted. Your children are happy. Your children are settled. You don't have any desires left. What else is the definition of heaven? And she'd say, "Nee, don't talk these kafirana baatein." So it's there in everybody, whether openly expressed or not, but somewhere. And it begins to make me think back of school and so on, when we used to tease each other, hey Musalte, hey Hindude, or Karante. We used to call each other that. It was always in jest. I never felt that this is going to lead to anything more than just a simple joke. But obviously, there was something deeper to it.
And also, I had to go through this to understand what is Hindutva. How it, from where it had originated, how it comes. And Kancha Ilia's writings helped me a lot. And he had raised some questions which is very interesting. There is no other religion you will find where gods have weapons in their hand except the Hindu gods. So what they are doing actually with the weapons? Gods are for people to do good to the people whom they are to kill. And the whole this Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Panchalia's interpretation is remarkable. It's looking from the below. Maybe I'm an atheist, but still I have born and brought up in a Hindu environment. It's very difficult but important to take yourself out of that ethos and watch yourself. Where I stand, what actually happening. Still in Calcutta, there are areas which are Muslim dominated areas. I know people when they travel through these areas, they get scared somewhere. Maybe it's because of some incidents, the riot, the Calcutta killing, but those days are gone, those generations are gone. But still it is somewhere within ourselves, if he is a Muslim, you just cannot trust him fully.
Right.
I don't know, but it's very, very, very sad and...
I mean, these are politically, motivated.
We were taught like that from the...
But it's also true that they become kind of common sense now. In today's India, everyone sort of, the majority community certainly propagates these ideas.
And the Indian culture is enriched in so many ways by the Islamic culture, the art, architecture, everything. Just like the British, after all these things are there, but still, it's a long battle, I think, in coming days. Maybe we need to. Actually, I don't love making movies with what they call content-driven movies. The movie must tell you where you live, who are the people around you. That is very important.
So the figure of this Behrupiya who's dressed as Ram and who keeps appearing here and there and so on. I mean, that is actually a very subtle kind of way of actually generating the kind of majoritarian,
And you are being watched.
and you're being watched, your surveillance issue. The other thing, and which connects, and I'll go to the question, the other thing which I thought I should mention is that it also links up with the question of fanaticism, which again is running through your film, and where the dialogue also is there. Is the way of the soundtrack, and that was really remarkable. When it started, first time I watched it, I said, what's going on? When Reshmi is being questioned by the Reverend, and she breaks down, there's Hallelujah that begins. And it begins slowly at the chant, and then it dominates the soundtrack, it sort of rises in volume, and it dominates the soundtrack. And I thought that was very interesting because it actually connected up with the figure of this Ram character, So the fanaticism in every religion, it's there present in every religion, and that is what is really disturbing. And in today's India, it's dominated by the fanaticism of the Hindus, right? So that I really liked very much, and I sort of watched when I watched the second time, I marked the various places. It occurs again later in the film, which is very important. So another question, the role of academia in cinema. How can we incorporate various academic disciplines or maybe their field work, research as an interdisciplinary project with screenplay, fiction, or maybe with documentaries, filmmaking and academia in totality? The relationship between filmmaking and academia, I think that's what the question is asking. How can academia contribute? How can, we want to feel important here.
Let me be blunt. Learning filmmaking in the classroom is not possible. You have to be on the road, must have a camera and just keep on shooting. I think whether you have heard the name of a movie is a film called A Man with a Movie Camera. So nowadays it is very easy. Man with a mobile camera. You have your camera with you in your pocket. and you can just shoot anything that you want, and then use those shots, develop a movie, discover the movie. That is important. And to become a movie maker, you have to work hard. And nowadays, I see some white-collar filmmakers. But when I started, there was reels, huge reels. To carry those reels were very, very tough. So we had to travel from Calcutta to Mumbai or to Madras to go to the lab, get it developed, print, everything. But now it's only a pen drive or something in your pocket. You can go to anywhere, or you can just mail it to your lab. And so the physical proximity with the cinema. Nowadays we cannot touch the shot. There was a time when you will see movies, photos of the masters of India or abroad, watching with the film strip watching. That is something. But that is not there. But we cannot see what we shot. Why I today came and was so particular about the projection, starting from the aspect ratio, people call it 16:9. 16 is not the reaction right. I have to tell them the actual aspect ratio, then you get the actual image. Now the tonality, all these things are so important, and in digital age it is so confusing. It's very difficult to understand, and in an analog days, the negative was the last thing. When it is there in the negative, it's done, it's okay. But now I can create a green cast on the whole film, just with the tweak of a switch or something like that. Or suddenly a film become more blurred. So you have to be very particular. This is the thing. I have never been to any college or any Pune or somewhere, anywhere. I learned filmmaking from television studios, from other technicians, filmmakers. They taught me the way how to make a movie. Actually, I can say much about the educational part of it.
No, I don't think that not having studied in a film school disqualifies you in any way. There are a list as long as my arm of FTII direction graduates who have not made a movie in 50 years. And they're all qualified filmmakers, if you please. But I believe that as Saibal said, you need a camera and you need a strong back and strong shoulders, and you need to go around and spot what you ought to film. Filmmaking is made through the eye and through the heart. There are instances of filmmakers, a great filmmaker like Mehboob Khan apparently was completely illiterate, couldn't even sign his own name, but yet he made absolutely great movies. Not political movies, films about relationships. But that doesn't mean that you dismiss the learning. When you put that camera on your shoulder, you've got to be armed with the information. You've got to be aware of the sociological situation. You've got to be aware of the history you've studied. You've got to be aware not only of the art and painting, but of the aesthetics of it, but of the nuts and bolts of what you're trying to say. And certainly, I agree that films are not made in a classroom, but the classroom, what you absorb, can certainly contribute a great deal to what you finally decide to end up pointing your camera at.
I think the person who's asked this question also wanted to know whether not training in filmmaking, but academic training in doing field work, ethnography, etc. Would that help? I mean, is that the kind of material that would contribute when you're to filmmaking?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I definitely think so. If that were not the case, then documentaries would not be made.
Yeah.
And there are two absolutely beautiful documentaries that have been made in India this year, The Elephant Whisperer and All That Breathes. They are two of the finest films I've ever seen.
And Shonal is from this institution.
Oh.
All That Breathes, the director and the producer are both our students.
Of All That Breathes?
Yeah, of All That Breathes.
Very good. Not surprising. He knew what he wanted to say, and he knew how he wanted to say it.
So there's a...
I just want to add, once John Ford was asked, he made a film in silent era. It's called Three Bad Men. And he was asked, how you made this film? His answer was, with the camera. And then there's this saying, if you want to make the movies, the answer is read, read, read.
Yes, thank you. So there's a question for Nasir Sir. What is your take on the conflict between the absolute rejection of religion, something that becomes essential in the context of divisive Adivasi politics shown in the film, and accepting that religious belief is as much a part of cultural practice as science or rationalism? How does it affect your approach to being a part of a film like this in times such as these?
I was brought up in an Orthodox Muslim family where my parents did their daily worshipping and reading of the Holy Book, and we were taught to try and read the Quran, which was torture for us, but we did it, and I thank my stars that I did it because it familiarized me with the Arabic alphabet, and therefore I've learned to read Urdu since then. But I always found religious concepts, at least the ones that I was told, slightly ridiculous. Even at the age of, I think, 4 or 5. I remember arguing with my Maulvi Sahib about him saying that the earth was flat. And my father would chastise me for doing this. Don't argue with the Maulvi Sahib. Or I'd say, but he's talking nonsense, Lord. Or is what they're teaching us in school nonsense? You tell me. How can the earth be moving? If it were moving, to phir yahan se wahan nahi pahunch jate. And this kind of stuff. There's one divine soul who sits up there and who is noting down he must have a really busy day. I often wondered, how does he keep track of every single person on this earth? I found this very hard to believe. I did read the Bible in school. I went to a Christian school. I have read parts of the Ramcharitmanas, and I've read bits of the Quran. And all I can say is that they were written by great writers. Whether they're divine revelations or not, I'm not getting into that area, and I'm not getting into an argument about that. I do not know if they were divine revelations, but they are great literature. Yes. And I think that being exposed to the sounds of the Arabic language and the Latin language and the Sanskrit language early in life has helped me immensely in my diction. But religion has never played an important part in my life. I remember one day when I was without work very early, around 1975, I'd done one film and I was not getting any other work. And there were days when I went hungry, and there were days when I went penniless and so on. And one day I was so desperate that I said, "Chalo namaz padhta hu. Shayad kuch sukoon mil jaye mujhe." And I did the wuzu, and I spread up the janamaz, and suddenly I said, "What is this nonsense? What am I doing? Am I going to buy sabzi? I'm going to buy alus and tomato. I'm going to barter with the old man. I'm going to say, I'm going to praise you, and you do something for me." Now this kind of bargaining, I don't get. And since that day, I have not prayed except in gratitude. That's the only kind of prayer that I consider to be important. My family did not have a problem about my marriage with Ratna. None of them criticized or said you're living in sin or anything of the sort. So it has never figured in my life. It's only now that I'm becoming aware of my identity as a Muslim. which I never was.
Yeah.
And I think that's a terrible thing.
I think in India we grew up and you did, I did. We weren't so aware of these ideas.
We were not. And I used to wonder when the Maulvi Sahib said all Muslims will go to heaven and all non-Muslims will go to hell. So I used to wonder why will K.C. Singh, my best friend, go to hell? He's a hell of a good guy. He likes his parents. He's an obedient chap. He's a good student. And why does he have to go to hell? And I'm going to go to heaven with all my flaws. The hell would be far more full of interesting people, I'm sure.
It's like Paradise Lost. No? Satan is a really interesting figure in Paradise Lost. Question for you. Why does Bollywood shy away from making movies that do not conform to the dominant and hegemonic ideologies?
Bollywood has nothing to do with life. Firstly, I detest this term Bollywood because it implies that Hollywood is the only markdand for any kind of film. So now there's not only Bollywood, there is Gollywood and Hollywood and Tollywood and God knows what else. But it never has had any connection to real life. There were movies made by the early works of Mr. V. Shantaram, some of the early Marathi movies, which talk to progressive ideas about widow remarriage, about love between Hindu and Muslim neighbors, how to reform criminals, etc. But even those movies conformed to the formula of how to make a movie. There's got to be a song every now and then. It's got to be emotion laden, and it's got to have a happy ending. So that has always been the template. So is it surprising that that Bollywood does not reflect reality? It's not supposed to.
Another similar kind of question for you. Should cinema be a reflection of society, or should we enjoy and take it as merely a source of entertainment?
It should be a reflection of something. I mean, that's what the cinema I know about and I love to make. But it's a very difficult job nowadays. There was a time when it was easier. I mean, you could make films with what you said, that the time is reflecting a new wave or something, names are there. I mean, we found Nasiruddin for that movement actually. But I think Nasiruddin is totally disillusioned with the movement now. It doesn't exist. Actually, what I say is cinema is dead. Cinema no longer exists. Actually. What we see is audio visuals. Or anyway, there's a different question altogether.
So, question for you now. Nasir sir, don't you think cinema as an agent of change is overrated? Perhaps documentaries may do so. And if they have any impact, what's the scale of it? And then he's added, I think this is someone called Kumar Siddharth, I think I'm your greatest fan, even watched Guru Mahaguru.
Did you sit through it? I couldn't. Thank you. Sorry, what was the question again?
It was about
change, about how cinema can bring change. I have doubts about it. If you were so intent on changing the world, you'd go out and do something about it. You wouldn't be making films. Films raise the questions, they don't give the answers, like any other art form.
Yes, exactly.
And I said earlier that I consider documentaries to be of more significance than feature films. Because in feature films you can get carried away with trying to lull the audience, with trying to apply some balm to them. I don't think there can be a successful film which is also a disturbing one. I don't think that it can be, because the audience doesn't pay all that money for the popcorn to get disturbed. You know, they go there to have a jolly good time, and unfortunately that has become the norm. And therefore a film which does not stick to the norm, people are skeptical about, as Saibal just told you about our film. which was released. Even I didn't find out
Yeah.
that it was running in Mumbai. And recently there's another very nice film called Faraz, which is also talks about the right things, which has also hardly been seen. The trouble with documentaries is people shy away. And people shy away, I suspect, because of the films division documentaries that used to come on. I don't know if you people are familiar with those, but in our time, oh my goodness. The films division logo had to appear and there would be a mass exodus out of the hall. You know, to go to the loo or to smoke a cigarette or drink chai or something. And therefore documentaries are associated with boring stuff. Visuals of leaders walking around cutting ribbons. And people don't realize that documentary cinema is the only kind of cinema which can capture life as it is. And therefore, I think that more heed should be paid to those who aspire to make films, to make documentaries.
But this is also a question that's never asked about literature, painting, or that should be an agent of change. But film, yes, filmmakers always ask this question.
Right, I think because film is such a visceral kind of experience. And a mass experience, which I'm afraid it's going to cease to be in 10 years' time. I've been predicting the disappearance of cinema halls completely. It will happen, it's already on its way. And maybe film will then become a solitary experience, not a collective one as it used to be. Hopefully that won't happen to the theatre.
But Pathan has, it was very collective. I mean, you can watch it in a single screen, or even have one of those new revised versions, people dancing and singing on the...
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the kind of sympathy the Shah Rukh Khan commands.
Especially now, post the trouble that...
Exactly, yeah. And I must say he conducted himself in a very dignified manner. I haven't seen Pathan. I don't think I'll see it. Because there's really nothing in the promos which makes me feel, wow, I got to see this. Whereas there are several other movies where I do feel that way. But
except that Shah Rukh has a presence, and the narrative, the narrative of his subjugation comes through quite well.
And the clever thing that he's done is not identified the character as belonging to a particular religion. And that was the smartest thing. And I'm sure it's a great time pass or whatever. But I don't often see this for time pass.
So, the question to you: don't you think that you portray the theory of evolution as pure truth in itself? Pure truth is itself well contested, and it is only a theory and not a law. Theory doesn't deal with truth or false, but only how it explains the world. So, question about shouldn't the theory of evolution also be questioned? I think that's what this question is.
It has already been questioned nowadays. I mean, people are working on it, and it is natural. I mean, the time that Darwin did this job, he had nothing with him. He didn't have the genealogy, use of gene and other things. Just only by observing, he had come up with this theory. And you know that he was scared when he realized that he had found something which is sort of alternative to God and the creation and other thing. He was not ready to publish it unless Wallace came up with the same result of his observation. So he sent his papers and Wallace's papers for this thing, actually.
The question is, which story makes more sense? The biblical description, the Quranic description, or Darwin? I think that's the answer to that question. And every theory can be and should be questioned, no doubt.
There's a related question. The film appears to glorify science, Darwin, but they're also used to suppress Adivasi belief systems and livelihoods. How do you address that contradiction?
No, but the question, I mean, it has been raised in the movie. I mean, Kunal did say that I have never heard of my God, the Mona, in the schools. I heard of the about Hindu gods and other things, but they have their own culture, and also it is being mentioned that today they are trying to get their own religion, Sarna, to be there in the census report. They till now they are, they are there as an other religions, but they do have their own culture, own religion, and they are very much on the road. They are fighting for it. I think it's been mentioned in the movie.
It's there.
And I don't think any work can roll up its sleeves and tackle every single problem that you see that there is in the world. You have to stick to specifics.
But it's interesting that this film actually raises that question, the Adivasi question. So, question for you, why did Nasir sir's character as a lawyer get shocked on hearing about the opposition lawyer Reverend Chatterjee? What made him fight the case? What stuck when he heard his name?
Well, there is a history between these two characters which I'm not sure comes across in the film, but as you all were informed, the character I play is one who has abandoned the legal profession and gone away to find his peace, and comes back in a spirit of competition, because this was the guy who outshone him and who emerged as the biggest star in the firmament. I think it's kind of akin to any sense of competition.
That he did say one scene when Soumitra said that we fought together, but now we are against each other. The Nasirji's answer is, that's evolution for you. So that so he has drifted from where he was.
But for my own self, what I did decide about this character was that his beliefs are similar to mine, rather my beliefs are similar to his, and therefore it wasn't very difficult for me to get into the character's shoes.
So, to either of you, to both, independence of judiciary is one of the most salient features of the Indian Constitution, but we see in the movie that it is not true, the way the chit was passed to the judge to control the events in the courtroom. However, the judgment is given in favor of the accused. So do you think such impartiality exists in the judicial structure, or is it your optimism that you wish to be seen in the Indian judiciary? You can say it's your optimism.
Okay, with the optimism that we have, but the scene that where this ceiling fall down and other things are indication to what the judiciary is actually. When I went around in the lower court, forget Supreme Court, the kind of atmosphere I saw, kind of rooms I saw, is horrible. And I can share one incident when I was just watching. I was sitting, listening to something going on, and the judge was about to deliver his verdict, and the convict was there in a place somewhere. He had a tooth nail. He was picking his tooth, and he said, "How about giving him a death sentence? What do you think? What do you think?" And the person in the box, he is an Adivasi, was like shocked and couldn't do anything, couldn't come out of that area. And it's tremendous. Very pathetic. The lower courts, if you visit there, and the dates that they get, months after months, year after year, it's dragging, and the kind of money the people are losing for nothing. Just a case.
Yeah.
It was a very terrible situation.
Question for you, MC Saab. As an actor from a minority community, is there any apprehension that you face in terms of taking up such roles and being a part of such films? What is it that pushes you to do it regardless of the vicious witch hunt of artists who speak the truth in the context of mainstream cinema in India, taking a horrifying kind of submission to the dominant ideology and propaganda films? Love the movie, by the way, in Club Zindabad. That's how this question.
Well, no, the answer is no. I don't feel any anxiety. I feel a sense of responsibility toward films which I feel, which I believe are stating something that should be stated and which people are not very vocal about. I think that any actor, irrespective of what religion he belongs to, would face flack from a certain section in any case.
Yeah.
And my being a Muslim in the film industry, I don't think is in any way an anomaly, because if you just go by the contribution of Muslims to the film industry, it's quite incredibly high. And I don't, as I said, in my heart of hearts, I consider myself to be an Indian, not a Muslim.
Yes, absolutely. The final message of Mr. Shah's character about his opponent in the movie is that he also has the right to think. And that is always an important one, but an easy one to miss. Do you think the message got through? You should ask them. Did the message get through?
Get through.
Yes. There you are. You got the answer. There's a clear progression, rather regression towards mythological plots. How do you think this affects viewers? How has the movie industry changed in these last few decades? I mean, it's been answered. Absolutely loved the movie. That's another comment. So regression into mythological plots in current mainstream industry.
It's become blatant. If you really think about it, Hindi movies we've been making movies for 100 years. We've been boasting about that, quite forgetting that we've been making the same movie for 100 years. But all those movies borrow heavily from the Mahabharata. There is no end to the amount of stories in the Mahabharata, and even if you read a few pages of it, you'll certainly come across something which will make a good commercial movie. So the mythology has always been a source for us, as in the same way as the old Parsi theatre or the Nautanki was a source for Hindi cinema when it began. But this regression into openly aggressive mythology, and one which attempts to demolish every other belief, is certainly a regressive step, and I fear it's going to continue.
Do you want to add something?
No, one thing is that, as Nasiruddin said about Mahabharata, one thing I can tell you that they misinterpret Mahabharata. I don't think they have read Mahabharata properly.
Probably not, but they've heard a few stories.
It's a great book, Mahabharata. Great book. I mean, if you take any incidents and go through it, think about it, it is something. It's ऐसे ही इतना दिन हमारा साथ वो नहीं है वो बने. People of the country loved Ramayana, loved Mahabharata, not just ऐसे ही नहीं, उसमें है कुछ, वो समझता है उसमें.
Right, and I think that's what the movie also tries to do, to debunk the idea that whatever is written in these books is literally true.
Yeah.
Jonah and the whale, for example, or this one making the sun stop in its tracks, and so on.
Yeah.
The point is not whether Jesus actually walked on the water or not, or turned the water into wine, but the lesson that we draw from these parables. I think that's what's more important. Unfortunately, these parables are being taken literally.
That's the thing. I mean, they are metaphoric. Their work is at the metaphoric level, and as you pointed out, literature basically, you know. But the people of the ideologies, all religious ideologies, believe them as true.
If it's convenient for them to do so.
Yes. In the past few years, Bollywood has been used as a scapegoat to hide real issues in the country. Do actors feel this pressure? If yes, what steps can they take? Or what steps can they take to speak up? What stops them from speaking up?
What stops them from speaking up? Fear and insecurity. The level of insecurity in our biggest stars is quite astonishing when you encounter it. And they do everything that they can to counter it. They fear they have too much to lose. And perhaps they do, but my question is, if you lose a couple of endorsements, how much will that impoverish you? If you need to, either they're afraid or they don't agree with the point of view that something is seriously rotten in the state over here. There are plenty of them who do believe that this is the golden age that we are living through, and they are entitled to their opinion. And actors don't feel, by and large, that they have any social responsibility.
There's a question about the recent Allahabad court case, High Court case against the Tandav web series, and the producer was accused of blasphemy. And so, were you afraid about such kinds of to both of you? Such kind of a response, and what the cost of this would be? I mean, the cost of being accused of this, I suppose.
Well, it didn't happen till now. My film is over. I mean, I made this film, it was screened, people have watched it. Now I think nothing will happen to this. Chala gaya, ban gaya.
I think Bengal probably has something to do with it. Because if it was being shot in UP or then the guy comes in, maybe.
That is true.
Then I'm not sure how long I can continue.
Not much, you have to start talking.
Okay, so there are lots of other questions, mostly about, similar questions about, what we can do to intervene in this present moment. What is the role of artists like you?
Vote properly.
Yeah, there's too much talk of broader issues about changing the world and so on. I think instead of that, we should all just attempt to do what we can.
Yeah. A couple of questions that say we love the film, and to you, we love you, to Nasir Sahab, we love you, and someone who wants to advise about becoming an actor. I don't know if you want to address that, but I think that's about.
Well, if whoever this person is, don't ever question the decision. Because if you do, you're going to get discouraged. First of all, you've got to be sure that you want to do this. You've got to be sure that if you were told you were never to act in your life, you would rather die. And if the answer is yes, then only choose to become an actor. Because it's a lonely and heartbreaking road, but it's also the greatest fun. So if you want to be an actor, prepare yourself for it, and don't believe that God will be kind to me someday. I need to go to every mandir or every masjid or every dargah or every chapel that I can and pray and God will make me a star. No, He won't. He's got too many other things on His mind.
Okay, I think there isn't time for more questions, but thank you both for a wonderful, wonderful discussion.